Yes.
Good morning.
Interesting day ahead of us. Can you just give us the latest update as to what happened the weekend and then what you expect today?
Well, I spent most of the weekend preparing documents for the court this morning. I just want to sort of correct what you earlier said, that I was nearly assassinated. I wasn't nearly assassinated. People were sent to kill me, but I was ready and waiting for them, and so too were the police. And they were walked into a trap, and the trap was closed in around them. So once again, I think working together with the police, we've been able to apprehend some more dangerous criminals.
Mr. Sullivan, just tell us a little bit of the history, and also tell us, has there been any other attempts on your life before in this case?
Yes, this is it's a long documented case. You'd need several hours to go through it all. But this is now, I was saying last week it was the fifth time. Over the weekend, preparing my documents for court this morning, I realized that it was in fact the sixth time that Krejcir has attempted to recruit people to kill me. He's gone so far as ordering snipers, rifles, and all other sorts of paraphernalia, and he's been at this now for almost 4 years. I've been on his back for 4.5 years, and I think he didn't realize that I was around for the first 8 or 9 months, but since then he's tried to have me eliminated quite a few times, along with all the other cronies of his that he's had eliminated. I mean, he's killed, I think now the figure is sitting around 10 in South Africa, or 11.
Do you believe that the risk is still as high, even with Krejcir behind bars?
Well, we have to look at that. The fact remains that putting a man like Krejcir in CMAX, one would have expected that things would be secure. But the fact remains that, in fact, things were not secure. He was able to have all a cell phone smuggled into CMAX, and from CMAX, he was giving instructions to have people killed. So I think Department of Correctional Services are going to be asked to explain themselves in some detail.
Just tell us about the links that he has within the authorities and your experience or your ideas. What sort of network does he have within officialdom?
Well, he's got a very detailed network, Unfortunately, he's living off the proceeds of crime. The man has no form of visible income whatsoever. He's never done a day's work in his life, and yet he has access to millions and millions of rand, which is all dishonestly earned money. And as part of his criminal profile, he dishes a portion of that off to lawyers to keep him out of prison. He dishes another portion off to officials to keep him out of the criminal justice system. And then he dishes another portion off to hitmen to kill people that might put him into the criminal justice system. And so it goes on. He's a classic mafioso.
There are different reports as to where his funds or his money sort of comes from. Can you give us an idea, the move from Europe to here, the kind of infrastructure and the kind of money that he has at his disposal, and how he's come to that?
Well, once he brought money in, and I mean the first case I opened against him was for money laundering. He laundered millions of rand, and that was all stolen funds that he stole through illegitimate scams that he was running in the Czech Republic, were smuggled into South Africa through a money laundering scheme he got involved in with a Cypriot bank. And the next thing, once he had sufficient funds in South Africa, he used those funds as seed funding for his criminal empire. And since then, he's been making money from drug trafficking, extortion, money laundering as well, and most importantly, the theft of stolen property. So he's had gangs going around, breaking into people's houses, stealing jewelry. The jewelry has been brought to this so-called money point business that he had, where the diamonds and stones and whatnot were split. And the gold was melted down and the stuff was sold, and that's how he was making a living. And I mean, on a regular basis, criminals were queuing up to sell their stolen property to Radovan Krejcir. So with him out of the system, you're going to see a reduction in house robberies.
Mr. Sullivan, we've also got information that links that there's a counterfeit link and that we've had to change our 200 Rand note in South Africa. Is there any truth of that, or can you shed any light on that for us?
No, I've not heard anything that would connect Radovan Krejcir to any counterfeiting operation insofar as counterfeit 200 Rand notes are concerned. So, if there is that angle to his illegitimate businesses, it's something I haven't got to at this stage.
Just, I want to talk about the hit and the sort of assassination attempts. Can you tell us how this sort of thing works, from the person who gives the order in this case right up to the hitman?
Okay, well, the hitman in question, we think was the same hitman that killed Sam Issa in that, I think it was in October now, when outside the Bedford Centre, I think it was 5 o'clock in the morning, one Saturday morning in October, when the guy's car was peppered, I think 34 rounds. Now, the weapon that was used there was an R5 semi-automatic rifle. The weapon that was seized on Thursday in the police sting operation was also an R5 semi-automatic rifle. And the ballistics tests haven't been done yet, but it would appear the ammunition within the clips there, and everything seems to match the profile. And there's blue light was found in the vehicle, and everybody said there was a blue light used at the scene of the other man. So the links are all there. Now, it would appear that these people were changing their phones on a weekly basis to avoid detection, but crime intelligence picked up on what they were doing and followed the changes that they were making because they were too lazy to get other phones. Now, their modus operandi was that Krejcir gave instructions from behind the cell in CMAX, and he effectively told this person that whacked Sam Issa and possibly whacked some other people too, that, look here, I'm in prison now, and if I don't get out on bail, we're going to have problems. Eventually they're going to get to you. So the best thing we can do now to keep yourself out of prison is you go whack O'Sullivan and whack this Colonel Kimber, and once they're out of the way, I'll be able to bribe the right people and I'll be released and we'll be able to return to normal again. And I want you to whack him before 12 o'clock on Thursday, because I expect to get bail on Thursday through my High Court application, and then I'm going to be able to come out and say, oh dear, was Mr. O'Sullivan shot? Shame. Well, it couldn't have been me because I was in prison.
Just how do you see things proceed now? How do you see the process proceed in the weeks and months to come?
Well, obviously there's more charges to be added. Krejcir now has to be charged with conspiracy to commit murder. But the information that we're now putting together, I think, we're going to see a situation in the coming weeks and months where he's going to be charged with other crimes as well. For example, the murder of Uwe Gambala, the murder of Lolly Jackson, the murder of Sam Issa, the ones where we can get the solid links, and the links are there. He's going to be charged with those murders. And then I think some of his family members are also going to be charged with accomplice to some of these crimes that he's been involved in.
Finally, Mr. O'Sullivan, give us an idea how deep this rabbit hole really goes, and how far does Krejcir's influence go within the country?
Well, it went quite deep. I think what we've succeeded in doing, the first general in the police that was a casualty here was General Joey Mabasa. Now, I fingered him as far back as 2010 or 2011, I think, 2011. I fingered him in 2011 as being involved in on Krejcir's payroll. Now, when you've got a major general in the police on your payroll, that makes you a pretty powerful person. And Mabasa wasn't the only general on his payroll. So, the rest of the police on his payroll are now being flushed out. And I think they're probably the ones that haven't yet been flushed out. They know it's coming, and I want to reassure them that it is coming, and we're going to flush you all out.
Well, Mr. O'Sullivan, thank you for joining us today. That's forensic investigator Paul O'Sullivan talking to us about the case involving Czech fugitive Radovan Krejcir. Moving on.